The moment Monica knew they'd screwed up wasn't when they called her non-essential. It was when she saw the look of relief on the CFO's face after she agreed to coordinate the Q3 reporting package without pushing back. That smug, chinless grin said it all. They thought she was tamed. Useful, quiet, invisible, like a paperclip. In that moment, Monica wasn't angry. She was surgical. That special kind of calm where the heart slows, the eyes narrow. Your brain quietly whispers, "Oh, so it's gonna be like that." 2 hours later, she watched from the break room as the exec team clinked glasses over some lukewarm sparkling cider, celebrating internal synergy or some other masturbatory nonsense. She stirred her instant ramen with the same chopsticks she used to fix a jammed label printer 2 weeks prior. No one noticed. No one ever did. Just 5 feet away from the glass wall of the conference room, Monica stood in her sensible heels, blending in with the potted ficus. They didn't even pause their speech when she passed. To them, she was part of the furniture, competent, compliant, non-threatening. But the thing about furniture, it remembers every ass that sat on it. And Monica, she had receipts. By the way, real quick, 97% of folks who listen to stories like this don't subscribe. If you're one of the silent ones, consider hitting that follow button. It actually helps the team more than corporate pizza Fridays ever helped morale. Promise. Back to our regularly scheduled disrespect. When Monica first joined the company 7 years ago, she'd been handed a mess of duct tape supply chains and a warehouse inventory system that still ran on Excel 2003. She fixed it, quietly, efficiently, without PowerPoints. Then she got promoted sideways. Twice. Her job title got longer, her budget smaller. They called her a ninja during performance reviews. Like that's a compliment instead of a cop-out, for we can't afford to lose her but won't actually pay her. And every time some slick-haired bro with a LinkedIn addiction bungled a logistics forecast, they'd turn to her with that smarmy Monica, "Can you just?" And she'd do it. Not for them. For the employees 2 levels down who actually kept things running. The rot started slow. First came the new VP of Cost Optimization, Travis. He wore designer sneakers to prove he was hip with the floor workers and once asked Monica if forklifts were still a thing. She corrected his math in a budget draft, and he smirked like she'd asked for a raise in Morse code. Later, she overheard him in the hallway whispering to the CFO, "She's non-essential, but good at cleaning up messes." That line hit like a mosquito in the ear at 3 a.m. Small but blood-boiling. Monica didn't storm in. She didn't clap back. She wrote it down in the little black moleskine she kept in her purse next to her backup phone charger and a laminated copy of her employment contract. Because Monica didn't scream, she documented. She watched the slow devolution of strategic operations into whatever Travis thinks this week. She saw legacy clients slip away. She sat in meetings where decisions were made by men who confused confidence with competence. And through it all, she smiled. She nodded. She even fetched coffee once for herself. She also had her attorney friend quietly review her employment terms. That moleskine filled up fast. Her nickname on the warehouse floor was Fixer, whispered with respect. But in the C-suite, she was good all Monica, a placeholder. She made the graphs look good. She cleaned up behind their half-baked transformations. They assumed her silence was submission, that her neat blouses and careful tone meant passivity. But Monica Patel had grown up watching her mother renegotiate rent with landlords too scared to admit they'd been out-haggled by a 5-foot woman with no college degree and an iron will. Silence wasn't weakness. It was aim, and Monica's aim was precise. The investor's cologne hit the air before the elevator even dinged open. It smelled like menthol, ego, and debt, an expensive musk that tried to say power but screamed margin call. Monica clocked him instantly. Loafers too new, watch too heavy, handshake too limp. His name was Burke, and he wore a blazer with suede elbow patches like he was prepping to lecture a freshman business class on scaling pain points. Burke took one glance at the Q3 numbers, and mumbled something about operational fat. Then he turned to the CEO and said, "You've got a lot of loyalty on payroll. That's dangerous, dangerous. Not inefficient, not redundant, dangerous." Monica was sitting just 2 seats away, sipping cold conference room coffee and mentally building a spreadsheet titled "Reasons This Man Will Burn Us All." The meeting was an hour of word salad. Phrases like vertical alignment, burn reduction, trimming emotional cost centers. No one mentioned layoffs outright, but you don't bring in a private equity buzzard like Burke unless you're about to gut the cow and sell the leather. That night, Monica skipped her usual bourbon on ice and called Annika, her old law school roommate. Hypothetically, she said, "What's the cleanest way to ensure I get what I'm owed if a company decides I'm emotionally expensive?" Annika, bless her sharky heart, didn't even pause. Net profit clause. Not gross, not salary multiplier. Net. And tie it to non-cause terminations only. Make it look like a standard redundancy fallback. Sneak it into a general contract refresh. Just don't name it something obvious. They hashed it out over 3 glasses of boxed Merlot and an encrypted email thread. Clause 14B became 14C. The wording was careful, surgical, buried beneath innocuous HREs like continuity assurance and strategic transition guarantees. The clause read like an afterthought, something you'd skip if your Red Bull was wearing off. 12% of net profit for the fiscal year, payable upon involuntary termination not attributed to misconduct, negligence, or criminal action. Triggered only if no other severance or bonus is provided. Payable within 90 days of written notice. Scalpel disguised as a safety net. She printed it, signed it, and slid it across the table to the in-house legal rep Pam, who once tried to file an NDA as a PDF image. Pam glanced at it, sighed, and muttered, "Oh, redundancy stuff," as she signed with the flourish of someone too underpaid to care. Monica smiled. There was no parade, no cloak and dagger thrill. Just a quiet, surgical insertion of accountability into a world allergic to it. She didn't update her LinkedIn. She didn't tell anyone. Not even Daryl in IT, who always slipped her printer paper when the supply room got strategically resourced. Instead, she slipped the countersigned copy into her home safe, right next to her mother's wedding bangles and the emergency burner phone. Not because she thought they'd come for her yet, but because she knew they would. In the weeks that followed, Monica kept her eyes open. A budget memo was restructured. Project she spearheaded was handed to someone who couldn't spell logistics without spell check. Her team was split across departments like bad meat through a stew. They started holding meetings without inviting her. Oh, must have been an oversight, they'd say. But oversights don't happen 3 times in one week. Not unless they're deliberate. So Monica smiled wider. She asked clarifying questions. She volunteered to reformat spreadsheets no one read. She acted grateful. Small, compliant. Because what they didn't know was that Clause 14C was no longer a footnote. It was a fuse. They called it Project Lean Fire because of course they did. Slap a cool name on a decapitation and suddenly you're visionary. The internal rollout had all the charm of a mass eviction wrapped in a PowerPoint deck. Travis, the new VP of Cost Optimization, whose resume read like a BuzzFeed quiz, stood up in front of the company with his teeth too white and his shirt too tight and announced, "We're trimming operational inefficiencies so we can ignite core value." Monica didn't even blink. She just wrote "Ignite core value equals gut departments plus gaslight survivors" in her notebook and underlined it 3 times. The next morning, her team of 6, quietly brilliant logistics analysts who actually understood the difference between SKU variance and gross margin, was dissolved like aspirin in corporate vinegar. One got shipped to marketing to translate spreadsheets into digestible insights. Another was loaned to HR for talent modeling. The last 2 got handed pink slips with a $15 DoorDash coupon. Monica, she got promoted. They called it a lateral development opportunity under a new title: Senior Strategic Liaison, Logistics Solutions Division, which meant nothing, and worse, reported directly to Jeremy Pike. Jeremy was 3 things: loud, inexperienced, and the human equivalent of an Applebee's happy hour. He'd once called Monica ma'am in a meeting about drone warehousing, and then asked if she could dumb down the back-end math for the creatives in the room. His last big initiative was a TikTok campaign for freight delivery visibility. It lasted 6 hours and cost 5 figures. Monica shook his hand, smiled, and made a new folder in her home drive, Evidence Reassignment Pike. Jeremy held stand-ups where everyone sat down, and collaborative brainstorms that were mostly him repeating Reddit quotes like they were gospel. Monica spoke exactly 4 times in the first week. Each time, Jeremy interrupted her halfway through to say, "Love where your head's at, but let's circle back to that later." She never circled back, she documented. She tracked every assignment diverted away from her. Every time her name got dropped from a CC thread, every budget decision made without her input, despite being the most senior operations analyst in the building. She logged timestamps, names, digital copies, every breadcrumb. Then, in week 3, Jeremy presented her own supply chain heat map in a quarterly strategy call, with her watermark removed and his name in Comic Sans at the bottom. "Built this out over the weekend," he said, with all the swagger of a guy who thought Excel formulas were magic spells. Monica smiled, whiter than usual. "Impressive," she said. "Reminds me of something I saw last quarter." No one noticed the twitch in her eyebrow except Carla from finance, who dropped her pen and mouthed, "Holy shit." After the meeting, Jeremy clapped Monica on the back like they were frat brothers. "Knew we'd work great together," he said. "Now we just gotta trim some fat from your old budgets, eh?" She filed that under Jeremy misattribution heat map theft. At night, Monica didn't drink. She ran. She jogged past the old schoolyards of her childhood, her breath fogging up like the inside of a cheap thermos, replaying conversations in her head, rewinding every fake compliment, every hallway "Hey Monica," quick favor, every backhanded team player remark. They weren't just cutting her out, they were erasing her. And the kicker, they thought she hadn't noticed, that she was too polite or too corporate traumatized to care. But Monica Patel didn't need applause, she needed evidence. And evidence she had in triplicate. The CEO looked like he practiced his regret face in the mirror that morning, chin lowered just enough to appear humbled, eyes wide like he just discovered poverty was real. He stood under the soft glow of the conference room LEDs, sleeves rolled up for the working man aesthetic, and announced it with the same tone you'd used to cancel karaoke night. In light of economic turbulence and shifting stakeholder priorities, he said, we've made the difficult but necessary decision to pause year-end bonuses for all non-essential staff. Pause. Let it sink in. Temporarily, he added like a snake oil chaser, we're still a family, and families stick together when times get tough. Monica didn't blink. She stared dead ahead, jaw set like concrete under a coat of nude lipstick. Around her, faces shifted, whispers, clenched jaws, someone audibly muttered bullshit. But Monica just sipped her stale conference coffee and stared at the man who once told her she was the engine under the hood. Apparently, he decided she was a spare tire now. The word non-essential echoed like a shotgun blast muffled by HR speak. It wasn't about the money. Not really, it was the label. The branding of her labor as a luxury while Jeremy Pike probably got a retention bonus for breathing in sync with the CFO. 2 days later, they called her in. The HR rep was new, wet behind the ears and reading from a script printed on thick cardstock. Monica didn't even sit. She stood, arms folded, watching the woman's lip tremble on the phrase effective immediately. The phrase hung in the air like wet laundry. No cause, they said, just restructuring. We regret this deeply. No mention of her years rebuilding their operations after 2 failed ERP rollouts. No acknowledgement of the retention she'd salvaged when 3 logistics managers quit in the same quarter. Just a manila envelope and a very soft-voiced, we hope you'll stay connected with the company community. Monica took the letter. Her nails didn't even press into the cardstock. She just nodded. Thank you, she said, calm as a lake before a storm. The HR girl looked relieved. That relief would die a slow, panicked death within 72 hours. Outside the glass room, Jeremy Pike walked by, grinning like someone who'd just farted in an elevator and got away with it. Sorry to hear, he said. You'll land on your feet. Monica smiled. Oh, I always do. And she walked out. No box of desk trinkets. No tearful goodbyes, just her phone, her keys, and a printed copy of the termination letter tucked neatly into her leather folio. At home, she placed it beside the countersigned contract copy, the one with clause 14C underlined in pink. The one no one remembered she slipped into the last contract update. The one Pam from legal had called standard redundancy boilerplate. They didn't know it yet, but they'd just signed a check worth 7 figures. And Monica Patel, she always cashed in late, but she cashed in big. Subject line, clause 14C payment enforcement timestamp, 8:13 a.m. Monday. Attachments, 1 PDF. Body, 1 sentence. Per clause 14C of Miss Monica Patel's employment agreement, please initiate payment within the stipulated 90-day window to avoid breach. Monica didn't hit send herself. That pleasure belonged to Annika, her friend, attorney, and cold-blooded clause assassin. The kind of woman who wore red lipstick to arbitration and smelled like steel. She sent it while Monica stirred sugar into her coffee, sitting on her balcony in silence. No rage, no gloating. Just that rare, bone-deep satisfaction of knowing they had no idea what just hit them. By 8:29 a.m., the email reached Pam in legal. Pam, who still used sticky notes to track compliance deadlines. Pam, who once told Monica, don't worry, we always settle quietly. Pam, who hadn't reread Clause 14 since signing it on a Friday afternoon between a gender bias seminar and a vape break. She opened the PDF, she read it once, then again, then a third time, slower, eyes narrowing like she was deciphering ancient scripture. 12% of net profits, not salary, not projected bonuses, net profit for the entire fiscal year, triggered by non-cause termination without alternative severance. Signed, countersigned, dated, Clause 14C, enforceable, clean, ironclad. Pam didn't breathe until she hit forward to the CFO. No commentary, just 3 words, please review urgently. Across the building, in a boardroom that still smelled like Friday's sad bagels and broken morale, CFO Vince Lockwood clicked it open during the morning metrics sync. The man had survived 3 recessions, 2 divorces, and a botched hair transplant. But what he read drained the color from his face faster than his last blood pressure spike. Clause 14C, he whispered it like a curse. Travis, sitting nearby, perked up like a possum sniffing garbage. That Patel chick, didn't we just drop her? The CFO didn't respond, he just kept reading. His pen, the same one he used to sign quarterly reports and expense approvals for the CEO's golf retreats, slipped through his fingers and hit the table with a soft plastic clack. Tell me we offered her something, he muttered. Please tell me we threw her a severance. Pam's voice came in quiet over speaker. No, the file says standard termination, no package required. Jesus Christ, Vince whispered. The room went quiet. Jeremy Pike tried to make a joke. Something about at least she didn't burn the building down, but it died halfway out of his mouth. Because what Monica had done was worse. She'd followed their process, used their language, waited for them to pull the trigger. And now, thanks to one ignored clause, Monica Patel was legally entitled to just over $1.74 million. The company had netted $14.5 million in profits this fiscal year, some of it from government contracts Monica herself negotiated. And now, 12% was hers. The kind of payout that doesn't just hurt a budget. It makes board members start checking their own contracts, makes shareholders start dialing private numbers, makes Travis start sweating through his Zara slim fit button-up. No storm, no threats, no scandal, just one clean email, and a fuse that had already been lit. Email subject line this time was a little more frantic. Clause 14C clarification needed. Monica read it over her morning oatmeal, one eyebrow arched just enough to amuse herself. It came from Pam again, of course, but the tone had shifted. Gone was the legalese confidence. This one practically tripped over itself trying to sound innocent. Hi, Miss Patel, upon further internal review, it appears there may have been a clerical oversight in the processing of your termination paperwork. We'd like to open a conversation about a possible settlement that fairly reflects your tenure and contributions to the firm. Translation. Please don't make us eat this grenade. The attached offer? A neat $120,000. Monica actually laughed, out loud. A dry, amused sound that made her cat bolt off the counter. She forwarded the message to Annika with one line. They think I can be bought for 6.9% of what I'm owed. Should we send them crayons? Annika didn't reply. She just CC'd everyone back with her signature flair. Per our initial communication, Clause 14C clearly defines the payment structure and scope. This includes net profits from all revenue channels, including, but not limited to, government transportation contracts initiated and executed under Ms. Patel's leadership. We respectfully decline the offer. And just like that, the mood at HQ went from damage control to panic response. Because they had forgotten, or never known, that the largest government contract that year, the one that single-handedly buoyed their Q2 projections, the $11.2 million logistics deal with Federal Rail Systems, Monica had written that proposal. She had worked overtime to secure it, negotiated the pricing, and personally flew to DC on her own PTO to meet with procurement. There were photos, emails, a LinkedIn post from Travis where he cropped her out of the handshake picture and captioned it, "Teamwork makes the dream work." Now that teamwork meant her payout just doubled in size. Back in the boardroom, the CFO stared at the revised projection sheet. He looked like he'd swallowed a live mouse. Paying her means we take a multi-million-dollar hit on reported net profits, he muttered, jaw clenched. That'll tank our Q4 investor call. And not paying her? The CEO asked, pacing like a raccoon trapped in a server room. Breach of contract, full legal exposure, arbitration fees, press risk, audit flags will bleed out either way. Pam tried to chime in, something about non-precedent settlements, but the CEO cut her off. Why didn't we catch this? Pam blinked. Because it was buried in boilerplate under a redundancy provision. Travis, pale and sweaty, mumbled. She always did love the fine print. Outside that room, Monica sat on her porch, sipping coffee with both hands wrapped around the mug like it was a trophy. Not because she needed warmth, but because she deserved to hold something solid while the structure she used to prop up was now caving under its own arrogance. He had mistaken her silence for submission, mistaken precision for passivity. Now they were boxed in, surrounded by their own signatures and digital timestamps. They couldn't retroactively offer severance without admitting fault, couldn't negotiate without validating the clause, couldn't walk away without a lawsuit that dragged through headlines like toilet paper on a shoe. Every hour they didn't pay her, the pressure built. Every shareholder update they postponed, the fuse hissed louder. Monica, she didn't raise her voice, didn't demand, she just waited because the trap wasn't made of teeth, it was made of math. Monica filed the arbitration paperwork on a Thursday, clear skies, birds chirping, the kind of morning you'd expect to bring fresh starts, not corporate hemorrhaging. Annika submitted the documents with the grace of a sniper. No press, no public theatrics, just a clean, sealed filing under the American Arbitration Association's executive breach category. Attached were 47 pages of exhibits, signed contracts, performance reviews, profit statements, emails, and a redacted version of Travis's infamous non-essential hallway quote. Yes, she had it recorded. Thank you, janitorial maintenance cam. By Friday, the phrase legal contingency related to former staff claim appeared, tucked like a tumor in the footnotes of the company's Q4 investor update. Small line, big impact. The update dropped on the investor portal at 6:00 p.m. sharp, in the classic move of executives hoping shareholders were too wine-drunk on a Friday night to care. But numbers talk louder than spin, and somewhere around 6:04, the phones started ringing. Words pending liability exceeding forecast hit like a Molotov cocktail in a room full of tax attorneys. At 6:17 p.m., one of the firm's largest institutional investors flagged the clause in a group email. Is this related to Patel? No one replied. By Saturday morning, a Slack thread leaked. Something about reputational risk mitigation and contractual time bomb. The company tried to plug it, but you can't unring a bell once it starts echoing in forums where people use words like exit strategy and Q1 repositioning. Then came Monday. VP of Investor Relations, Harold Kravitz, company man, golf buddy to the CEO, wearer of linen shirts in winter, resigned to pursue new ventures. Translation: he saw the sinking coming and swam for shore. His LinkedIn went dark before noon. The resignation triggered internal questions. Mid-level compliance officer asked on record if other staff contracts might hold similar risk. She was told to focus on controllables. She quit 2 days later. By Tuesday, 4 shareholders had submitted inquiry letters to the board. Legal costs ticked up. Insurance partners requested access to the arbitration files. And in a quiet office in regional finance, a junior analyst whispered, "Who the hell is Monica Patel?" As if saying her name might summon her like Beetlejuice. Meanwhile, Monica was at her favorite cafe, splitting a croissant crossword with her mother. She watched the headlines scroll on her phone, passive as a priest in a confessional. One item caught her eye. Firm delays earnings call amid legal uncertainty. She took a bite of pastry. Flaky, she muttered. Her mother asked. Just something I worked really hard on, she said. In the company's marble-tiled war room, the CEO paced hard enough to trigger a Fitbit heart warning. We need to contain this, he hissed. She's not even speaking publicly, and she's killing us. Maybe that's worse, the CFO replied, half in awe. We can't counter silence. It has no spin. The irony, of course, was thick enough to cut with a severance letter. They had spent years ignoring Monica. Now, her silence was the loudest thing in the room, and it was shredding them. Email arrived with the subject line. Exciting opportunity to reconnect. Monica read it over iced tea and a lemon biscotti she wasn't sure she even liked. The message was long, syrupy, and reeked of desperation disguised as optimism, like someone had tried to Febreze a burning couch. It was from the CEO himself, not a lawyer, not an assistant, him. The same man who called her our secret weapon in town halls and budget filler in boardrooms. Now, apparently, he wanted to explore avenues for collaboration and leverage Monica's extraordinary institutional knowledge in a fresh executive context. Translation: Please come back and help us unscrew this mess you warned us about 3 quarters ago. They offered her a new title, something shiny and fake, Global Ops Transformation Advisor. They dangled reinstated bonuses, double what she'd made before. A discretionary equity package, even implied a press release if she agreed to return quietly. It wasn't an olive branch, it was a bribe dipped in panic. Monica took exactly 4 minutes to consider it. 2 of them were spent stirring her tea. The other 2 were spent rereading the arbitration filing on her desktop, highlighting a single sentence. This action seeks accountability, not re-employment. She didn't respond to the email. She forwarded it to 2 financial journalists, both of whom had covered the firm's Q3 earnings call. Subject: ongoing arbitration related to executive misclassification and contractual abuse. Body: happy to provide documentation upon request. This matter is active and enforceable. Attached arbitration PDF. Clause 14C, termination letter. Email chain with the rehire proposal. She clicked send, then took another bite of that dry biscotti. Within 12 hours, the first story dropped. Headline: Former executive files 7-figure claim over quietly ignored contract clause. Investor stunned. Within 24, it trended. Reddit, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, even Twitter/X. People weren't just sharing the story, they were dissecting it, quoting the clause, applauding the finesse. The contract went viral among HR watchdogs and startup founders like it was gospel. She built a guillotine with dotted lines. Monica Patel is my new religion. Every woman in corporate America just printed Clause 14C on their lunch napkin. The company tried to downplay it, issued a statement about internal negotiations taken out of context. But that only fanned the flames. Because if there's one thing corporate PR departments never learn, it's that gaslighting backfires harder than honesty ever will. Meanwhile, Monica was at a botanical garden with her mother. Her phone buzzed again. Another journalist. Another request for comment. She didn't answer. She took a photo of a blooming orchid instead. Because the point wasn't to scream, it was to be undeniable. They had tried to bury her with jargon, euphemisms, and selective memory. But Monica didn't need a spotlight. She didn't need applause. She needed one thing: to be heard. And now, even the silence had her name on it. The boardroom was too cold, not metaphorically, literally. One had cranked the AC to Arctic levels, and still, no one was sweating harder than the CFO. Legal stood at the head of the table, her voice flat but sharp enough to slice through the pretense in the room like a scalpel. Clause 14C, she said, holding the document up like scripture. 12% of net profits for the fiscal year, if terminated without cause, and if no alternative severance or bonus is offered. She didn't embellish, didn't editorialize. Just read it, word for word, like a eulogy. When she finished, there was a long, stuttering silence, the kind that usually comes after car crashes or marriage proposals gone wrong. A few blinks, one dry throat clear. Then the CFO's hand twitched and his coffee slipped out of his grip. The mug hit the floor with a dull, hollow thud, followed by the sound of ceramic splitting like bones in slow motion. No one moved to pick it up. They all just stared. Because this wasn't a lawsuit anymore. It was a financial execution, clean, bloodless, and irreversible. The CEO leaned back in his chair, lips pale. His whole face looked like someone had dropped a sheet of printer paper over a rotten peach. So we pay it, he asked, voice cracking just enough to draw attention to how small he sounded. Legal nodded once, or you risk a full breach. Mandatory arbitration will become binding court judgment in less than 30 days. Media already has the documents. A settlement would no longer be confidential. No one asked how this happened. They knew. They let it happen. They fired her without reading, without listening, without ever considering the possibility that the quiet woman with the receipts and the color-coded folders might actually be the most dangerous person in the building. They had mistaken silence for safety. Now they were about to transfer $1,746,210.34 into her account and watch their quarterly profits drop like a stone in a still pond. Meanwhile, 6,000 miles away, Monica Patel dipped her toes into warm sand, eyes half-lidded behind oversized sunglasses, as she scrolled stock tickers on a burner iPad. The company's value had dipped 2 points overnight. Shareholder trust was hemorrhaging. She smiled just slightly. Next to her, a coconut drink with too many umbrellas. Behind her, waves doing their endless rhythm thing, and in front of her, peace. No smug emails, no meetings about strategic realignments, no men explaining her own charts to her. Just her bank notification ping, and the sound of justice landing in 7-digit thud. Her mother handed her a paperback novel without speaking. Monica took it with a nod and leaned back in her chair, because this wasn't revenge. Not really, it was restitution, and she didn't torch the building, she invoiced it. What I love about this story is how it flips the script on power. In most office dramas, the employee scrambles to survive. But here, the company walked right into a contract they never read and paid the price. It's a reminder, sometimes the smartest people in the room aren't the loudest. They are the ones quietly rewriting the rules. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.